She said she had to stay late at work. Everyone believed her. Everyone but me. Because that night, I decided to find out the truth, and she had no idea what I'd do next. If you like stories about karma, betrayal, and cold revenge, subscribe, hit the like button, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. It was a Thursday evening, calm, quiet. One of those nights where the house feels too big for one person. The air smelled faintly of the pot roast I'd cooked earlier, even though it sat untouched on the counter, slowly going cold. I just settled into my recliner, half watching the evening news, when my phone buzzed. "Don't wait for me, honey. I've got to cover a late shift. Love you." That was from my wife, Jessica. For most people, that might sound innocent. For me, it was the sound of something cracking. Because Jessica never worked Thursdays. She was an ER nurse, sure, but her schedule was carved in stone, Monday through Wednesday, 7 to 7. Thursday was her day for yoga, takeout, and mindless sitcoms. I stared at that message for a long minute, the phone glowing in my hand. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Finally, I just sent a simple heart back and set it face down on the table. But something didn't sit right. Not the words. Not the tone. Just something. I'd been married to Jessica for almost 7 years. Long enough to know her moods, her habits, her rhythm. And lately, the rhythm had been offbeat. She'd changed her perfume. Something darker, muskier. She'd started doing her nails in colors she used to call too flashy. She even bought a new phone case, pink glitter, which looked nothing like her usual quiet style. Still, I tried to shake it off. She worked hard. She deserved to feel good about herself. But as the clock ticked toward midnight and her name never popped up on my screen again, that little whisper in my head got louder. I opened our shared bank account, not out of jealousy, but instinct. And there it was, a $210 charge from a boutique hotel just outside of town, dated 3 days ago. Not a chain hotel, not a business expense. A boutique. The kind that sold privacy by the hour. My pulse kicked up. I sat there in silence, just staring at the screen. My reflection in the black glass looked like a stranger. I thought about calling her, demanding an answer. But what would she say? "It's for a friend. It's a mistake. You're paranoid." No, not this time. I decided to find out for myself. Quietly. So I waited until morning, brewed coffee, and called her hospital. "Hi, this is Daniel Carter," I said, forcing a casual tone. "My wife, Jessica Carter, is supposed to be on the night shift. I just need to pass along something urgent." The woman on the other end paused, clicking her keyboard. Jessica Carter? Let me see. My fingers clenched around the mug, the ceramic warm against my skin. "I'm sorry, sir," she finally said. "She's not on the schedule this week. Her next shift is Monday." The words hit like a hammer. Not on the schedule. Not working. Not there. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there. The coffee tasted like ash. I looked around the kitchen, the pictures on the fridge, the flowers I'd bought last week, the note she'd left saying, "Love you always." Always. That was the moment I decided. If she wanted to play this game, I'd play smarter. I wouldn't shout, I wouldn't accuse. I'd collect every piece of truth quietly, methodically, until she couldn't lie her way out of it. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of something very dangerous taking shape. And by the time Jessica realized what was coming, it would already be too late. The next morning felt different. The sunlight coming through the blinds looked the same, but the world itself didn't. Everything seemed sharper, heavier, like the air carried some secret I wasn't supposed to know. Jessica still hadn't come home when I woke up. No text, no call, not even one of her usual quick messages about traffic or overtime. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the cold coffee pot, feeling a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Just focused. Determined. People make mistakes when they act out of anger. I wanted the truth, not an argument. I opened my laptop, logged into the old family tracking app we'd installed years ago after her car was broken into. We hadn't used it since, but it still worked. My hand hovered over the mouse for a moment before I clicked her name. A small blue dot blinked on the map, moving slowly through the city, then stopping near the river, in a neighborhood full of expensive condos and private garages. Not anywhere near the hospital. Not even close. I stared at that little dot for what felt like forever, the quiet hum of the fridge the only sound in the house. Then I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and drove. The closer I got to that neighborhood, the tighter my grip on the steering wheel became. It wasn't jealousy that burned inside me. It was clarity. I wasn't imagining things anymore. She'd lied. That was a fact now, not a suspicion. The condos looked like something out of a magazine: modern glass, trimmed hedges, security gates. I parked across the street and waited. The seconds turned into minutes, minutes into hours. My coffee went cold, my leg bounced nonstop. Around noon, the elevator doors of one building opened, and there she was. Jessica, my wife. Her hair was loose, shining in the sunlight. She was wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater I'd never seen before. Her hand brushed the arm of the man walking beside her. He was tall, clean-cut, the type of guy who looked like he'd never lifted anything heavier than a golf club. They laughed. She leaned toward him, eyes bright, alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. I watched as he opened his car door for her, that easy smile on his face, and something inside me shifted. She wasn't covering a shift. She was covering a lie. They drove off together, and I sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. I didn't follow them. Not yet. Instead, I drove home. The silence of the house felt different now, not empty, but alive with understanding. Every photo, every little note she'd ever left, now felt like a piece of a story I'd never been part of. I turned on my computer again, logged into her email. She always used the same passwords. Always said, I'd forget if I changed it. That trust, that laziness, was about to betray her. The inbox looked normal: work messages, newsletters, hospital memos. But I knew where to look. The trash. And there it was. Dozens of deleted messages, some weeks old, some recent. Subject lines like "Can't wait," "Miss you already," "Next Thursday." The sender, a name I recognized. Dr. Nathan Myers. Head of surgery. Married. 2 kids. I clicked one email. It was short. Just her words. I'll tell him soon. He deserves honesty, but I'm not ready yet. My vision blurred for a second, not from tears, but from the raw pressure of it all. I read every message. Each one cut deeper. Each line another confirmation. They'd been meeting for months. Hotels, dinners, even vacations disguised as medical conferences. She'd been living a second life, and I'd been financing it unknowingly. I copied everything: the emails, the attachments, even her call logs from the cloud backup, onto a flash drive. I wasn't sure what I'd do with it yet. All I knew was that I needed evidence, not emotion. She'd built a world out of lies, and I was going to dismantle it brick by brick. When she finally walked through the door that night, wearing the same sweater I'd seen earlier, I was sitting at the kitchen table. I didn't speak. She smiled, tired but forced. "Hey, babe," she said, hanging her bag on the chair. "Long night. I'm exhausted." I nodded. "I bet." She didn't notice my tone. She grabbed a bottle of water, started telling me some story about a patient, the same rehearsed rhythm she always used when lying. I listened, silent. Every word she said felt rehearsed, false, hollow. When she paused, I asked quietly, "You worked all night?" She froze just for a second, then smiled. "Yeah, why?" I shrugged, pretending to sip my coffee. "Just wondering." Her shoulders relaxed. She had no idea. Not yet. I looked at her, really looked, the woman I thought I knew, the person I'd built a life with. And for the first time, she looked like a stranger in my kitchen. She talked about her shift for another 5 minutes before finally heading upstairs to shower. I waited until I heard the water running before pulling out my phone. One message, one photo. That was all it would take to turn her entire world upside down. But not tonight. Not yet. I had a better idea. I'd make sure when the truth came out, it wouldn't just destroy her lies. It would destroy the world she built around them. And she'd never see it coming. The next few days passed in silence. But it wasn't the kind of silence that comes from peace. It was the kind that builds pressure, quiet and heavy, waiting for something to explode. Jessica moved around the house like everything was fine, humming while she made breakfast, kissing me on the cheek before leaving for work, pretending our life was untouched. I played along. I smiled when she smiled. I listened when she talked about her fake patients and imaginary shifts. But behind every nod, I was planning. Every time she looked at me, I wondered if she could feel it. The shift, the slow pull of gravity as everything she'd built started to crumble. I spent my nights digging deeper. Bank statements, hotel receipts, text message backups. She'd used her personal phone for most of it, but her iCloud stored everything, even the deleted messages. That's how I found them. Pictures of them together, selfies from hotel rooms, little notes that read like teenage love letters. Can't stop thinking about you. Last night was perfect. He suspects nothing. That last one stayed with me. He suspects nothing. She'd underestimated me. She thought I was the kind of man who would never look past a smile, who'd rather stay comfortable than confront the truth. She was wrong. I printed every message, every photo, every piece of evidence, and stored them in a folder in my desk. I wasn't going to confront her yet. That would have been too easy for her. People like Jessica, they always find a way to cry their way out of things, to twist the story until they're the victim. I wasn't going to give her that chance. She needed to feel the ground disappear under her feet. One night, while she slept, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from him. Miss you already. Same place next week. I stared at the glowing screen, my pulse steady. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just noted the time, the date, the location. Same place next week. That meant another meeting, another lie. That was when I decided exactly what to do. Friday came fast. She left the house early, saying she had a training day at the hospital. I waited half an hour, then followed her. She drove across town, not toward the hospital, but toward the same neighborhood I'd seen before. I parked a few streets away, close enough to see, but far enough not to be noticed. The air was thick with summer heat, and my hands gripped the steering wheel as I watched her step out of her car. She wore a blue dress I hadn't seen in months, the one she used to save for special dinners. She checked her reflection in the window before walking inside. A few minutes later, Nathan arrived. I recognized his face from the hospital website. The perfect doctor, clean-cut, respected, family man. He carried a bouquet of white roses. I sat there watching as he rang the bell and disappeared inside. Time stretched thin. Minutes bled into hours. I thought about walking up to the door, about hammering on it until they both came out, but no, that would make me look weak. I didn't want to fight. I wanted destruction. When she finally came out, her hair was slightly messy, her smile relaxed. She kissed him goodbye, just like that, on the front step of his perfect condo. Then she drove home like nothing had happened. I waited until she was gone, then took a photo of her car in front of his place, both license plates visible. Proof. I drove back home in silence, the folder of evidence growing heavier in my mind. That night, she came in humming again, pretending to be tired. Long day, she said, slipping off her shoes. I looked at her, nodding slowly. I bet. She smiled, poured herself a glass of wine, and started talking about some patient story she'd clearly invented. I watched her mouth move, but all I could think about was the sound she must have made when she laughed with him, the way her voice softened when she said his name. I wondered if she'd used the same tone she used when she said mine. When she finished her story, I stood up and said I was going to bed early. She smiled again and kissed me goodnight, completely unaware that I already knew everything. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the plan forming more clearly in my mind. I wasn't going to confront her in private. No, I wanted the truth to come out where it couldn't be spun or buried. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I took her phone. I copied the most incriminating messages and photos and sent them to my own email. Then, I created a folder named Jessica Carter, Private Files, and uploaded everything to a cloud drive. I set it to private for now. I'd use it when the time was right. Over the next few days, I pretended nothing had changed. We went to dinner with friends, visited her parents, laughed at stupid sitcoms on TV. But behind every moment, I watched her closely. I saw how easily she lied, how naturally she shifted her tone to keep everyone fooled. And that made my decision even easier. I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to make sure her entire double life collapsed in one move. She'd wake up one day and realize everything she'd hidden had become public, undeniable, inescapable. She'd see the faces of everyone she'd fooled, friends, family, co-workers, looking at her with pity, disappointment, disgust. That would be the real punishment. I didn't want her to cry or beg. I wanted her to understand. To feel that slow, deep emptiness that comes when you realize you've destroyed your own life. And I was almost ready to make it happen. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in a strange quiet. The kind that feels too calm, too deliberate, as if the world itself was holding its breath. I woke up before sunrise and sat on the edge of the bed, watching Jessica sleep. Her face looked peaceful, almost innocent, but I knew better now. Every gentle breath, every soft sigh was part of a performance she'd perfected. I studied her for a moment longer, then got up and went downstairs. I poured myself a cup of coffee and opened my laptop. The folder I had built over the last week stared back at me like a loaded weapon. Emails, photos, screenshots, receipts. All the proof I would ever need. I'd thought about simply leaving, walking away quietly with the satisfaction of knowing the truth, but that wouldn't have been justice. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had turned me into a fool in front of everyone who thought we were the perfect couple. She deserved to face what she'd done, not in whispers or behind closed doors, but where her lies couldn't hide. I'd spent the previous night planning the exact way it would unfold. Nathan Myers, the man she was destroying our marriage for, was scheduled to give a lecture that evening at a charity banquet hosted by the hospital. Jessica was attending, too. It was a public event, black tie, with donors, administrators, and half the medical community there. I didn't have to imagine it. I'd been to those dinners before, sitting quietly at her side while she played the gracious wife. This time, I'd be there for a different reason. Around noon, she came downstairs wearing a casual smile and kissed me on the cheek. "I'll be late tonight. There's a fundraising event. You don't need to wait up." I smiled back, calm as ever. "That's fine. You look beautiful." She laughed softly, flattered, and walked out the door. I watched her car disappear down the street and then went upstairs to get ready. The suit I chose wasn't new, but it carried the right kind of weight. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I barely recognized. Calm, steady, ready. By 7, the banquet hall was alive with music, clinking glasses, and polite laughter. I slipped in unnoticed, blending with the crowd. The air was thick with perfume and small talk, the kind of environment where appearances mattered more than truth. I spotted her almost immediately. Jessica stood near the front, radiant in a silver dress, laughing with Nathan as if nothing in the world could touch them. He had his hand on her back, casual but possessive. People around them smiled, oblivious. The image might have broken me a week ago. Tonight, it just focused me. I waited until the speeches began, until the lights dimmed slightly and the crowd's attention turned toward the stage. That's when I moved. I approached the event organizer, an old acquaintance from my days volunteering for hospital projects, and asked if I could make a brief announcement on behalf of one of the donors. He didn't hesitate, just handed me the microphone after Nathan finished his speech. The timing was perfect. I walked onto the stage, my heart steady, my voice calm. "Good evening, everyone," I began, looking out at the sea of polite faces. "I promise I'll be brief. I just want to share something about integrity and trust, two things that matter deeply in both medicine and marriage." A murmur rippled through the room, but I kept going. "Sometimes," I said, "we put our faith in people who wear masks. We believe their words, their promises, their smiles. And when those masks slip, what we find underneath can destroy more than just love. It can destroy entire lives." I clicked the remote in my hand. The projector screen behind me lit up. The first image appeared, Jessica and Nathan together, laughing in that same condo I'd seen days before. Then another, texts, emails, hotel receipts. Gasps filled the room. People turned. Jessica's face drained of color. Nathan's froze into horror. "I thought you all should see," I said quietly, "what your respected doctor and his colleague have been doing while preaching ethics and commitment." The silence that followed was suffocating. Jessica stumbled forward, whispering my name, but I didn't look at her. Nathan tried to speak, but the noise of the crowd swallowed him. I handed the microphone back to the stunned organizer and walked off stage without another word. Behind me, I could hear voices rising, cameras snapping, whispers turning into sharp, shocked murmurs. Outside, the night air hit me like a wave of freedom. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I just walked to my car, started the engine, and drove. The phone rang half an hour later, her number flashing again and again. I didn't answer. Then came a message. "Please, we need to talk." I deleted it. By the time I got home, social media had already erupted. Photos from the banquet spread fast, and the hospital board had called an emergency meeting. By Monday morning, both Jessica and Nathan were suspended. The story became the kind of scandal people whispered about for months. She tried coming by the house once, tearful, desperate, saying we could fix it, but I didn't let her in. "There's nothing left to fix," I told her. "You made your choices. Now live with them." She cried, begged, said she loved me, but love built on lies isn't love. It's poison. I filed for divorce the next week. Months later, She moved out of town. Nathan lost his position and his marriage in the same week. I rebuilt slowly. I sold the house, bought a smaller one by the lake, started fresh. Sometimes, when the evenings are quiet, I think about how easily a life can split in two, before and after betrayal. I don't feel anger anymore, only clarity. You can't build trust twice. Once it's gone forever. If you've ever been betrayed, you know what I mean. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's peace. It's living better than the person who broke you ever expected. And in that silence, I found something stronger than forgiveness. I found freedom. If you stayed until the end, subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place.